Production underwriting for Ruckus has been made possible in part by the generous contributions from Fred and Lou Hartwig and from viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. We expand the panel, get rid of my table for this week only, and our range of opinions for tonight's special program covering the key campaigns of 2012. Joining Yale, Mary, and Gwen this week are the Steves, attorney Steve Marakin and columnist Steve Rose. Woody is off tonight. And we start at the top, the race for the White House. Despite a devastating first debate debacle, Barack Obama regrouped, recouped, and realized his goal of a second term as the nation's chief executive. Mitt Romney, the choice of a frustrated Republican Party, put up a valiant fight, but fell behind the incumbent in both popular and electoral votes. Now, voters in exit polls said the economy was issue number one. Economy, as we know, has been struggling during the Obama administration. So how do we explain the fact that Obama won when the economy was issue number one and the economy is not functioning as well as many people had hoped? Steve?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. One of the things that people said in the exit polls, which struck me as, quite frankly, bizarre, but it's reality, is that the economy is the main feature. Romney can do a better job on the economy, but it's all Bush's fault. And I find that to be bizarre. And so what I did is went way back beyond all the pundits, okay? And nobody in this room is going to agree with me. But this is what I truly believe. I believe we are in dire trouble in this country, and this election, unfortunately, the American people spoke. Alexis de Tocqueville got it right. Democracies can only exist until the voters discover that they can vote themselves while Jess fund the public treasury. Now, hold on.
He didn't say that.
Yes, he did.
Say that. No,
he did say it.
That's
a direct quote.
I
was there when he said it. I was there when he said it. Okay.
No, you weren't, but I was.
The fact of the matter is, we are in a situation now where, if the American people, as they did, chose to go with 4 more years of the path we were on the past 4 years, then it seems to me that the only rational basis for that is to say we want stuff and we'll give it to us.
I want to know what. Hold on. I want to know what Alexis de Tocqueville said that he misquoted.
He did not say that. Go online, you can check it out. It's a quote from 20 or 30, 40 years ago from somebody else. It's been attributed to Alex.
Read his book, Yale. Read his book. I read his book in high school.
Let me just add to the discussion. I believe your question was, how is it possible that the economy being as difficult and painful in many respects for people, however, on the right track?
Absolutely.
In terms of employment, in terms of housing, in terms of, for the first time, consumer confidence is way up, the highest in 10 years. So, Mike, people generally understood it's on the right track, and they didn't.
Fair to say they believe things were getting better, although they weren't great.
Absolutely, Mike, I'd like to respond
hang on,
if I can.
When told about how people felt about the economy, yes, it was concern, but people also felt like it is getting better.
Why?
So, because it is getting better.
Really?
It is, of course, it's getting better.
In what respect?
I mean, start with the stock market.
The unemployment rate is not
down yesterday. Let's start there.
Yeah, it's up 4,500 since Obama became president.
It's not as high as it was. It is getting better.
But
the other piece is the lack of confidence in Romney on so many other issues.
Steve Rose has never been this quiet for this long.
Let's Steve.
You're a moderate Republican. You describe yourself as that. Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say.
What's your reaction to what happened to the Republican Party in Tuesday's election?
I think that they have lost a segment of the population that they need to get back. Part of it is the fact that you have the Chris Kobach wing of the Republican Party, which has alienated a huge segment of the population. There are more have-nots than haves, and I think the have-nots came out and said, we want our share of what's going on in this economy, and by gosh, that is what they fought for, and that's what they went out and voted for. And you can't make a winning argument today out of the fact that you don't have the minority vote, the youth vote, the women's vote. I mean, you can't make a majority if you alienate that entire segment
Well,
of the
it's being
population.
said the Republican Party is too old, too white, and too male.
Yes.
You think that's an
And
accurate
stuck in the
description?
past. It's trying to take us backwards instead of forward.
I don't
and
agree
you're
with that
too
at all.
far. No, whenever any party shifts too far to the right, it's very difficult for them to maintain any hold on the office of the president.
Good
and
point,
history
ma'am.
tells you that.
Excellent
If you're too extremist in your views and policies,
nothing
it
wrong
will
with
implode.
On election night, President Obama gave what I thought was a very good, very
Brilliant.
conciliatory speech. Let's watch a portion of it and see what our reaction is.
Tonight, you voted for action, not politics as usual. You elected us to focus on your jobs, not ours. And in the coming weeks and months, I am looking forward to reaching out and working with leaders of both parties to meet the challenges we can only solve together. Reducing our deficit, reforming our tax code, fixing our immigration system, freeing ourselves from foreign oil. We've got more work to do.
Okay, Mary,
Yes.
do you think the Republican Party is going to take a look at this, listen to what he had to say, and believe that he's now open for business, he's looking at compromise?
Well, I think there are spots of hope around the country for moderate. First of all, there aren't many moderate Republicans left. Let's just be factual about it all. The far right has taken over the Republican Party to an extent that it cost them the election, and Gwen is right. Who will step forward in the states? Will there be somebody in Kansas that will step forward and take on Sam Brownback, who's Paul Ryan and Brownback are the same Chris Kobach and his voter suppression agenda and all the other stuff. The point about the night was that Mitt Romney tried to run for president to the right of the extremist right in his party, and then tried to quickly shift back to the middle right before the election when his very smart people knew it wasn't working. So always Boehner is a possibility in the House, and there are all kinds of other Republicans that could be of assistance, but there are not enough of them, Mike, and so is there going to be gridlock?
Boehner is the leader, and he said yesterday
Yes.
something that sounded conciliatory
Okay.
and oriented
Well, it
toward
sort of does.
compromise.
I think the good point is, I mean, I agree the Republicans has to be entitlement reform. I want Harry Reid out of there. He's an obstructionist and should go. Mitch McConnell goes fine too, but from the Democratic side, get rid of that guy in the Senate. Get somebody in there who's more willing to work with the Republicans and get some of this stuff done. I agree with the president that having something in the middle, a Simpson-Bowles type thing where you cut entitlements and yes, raise some taxes on people. You probably have to get rid of the tax break that I've been getting and most of us have been getting for Social Security for 2 years because now we're underfunding Social Security. I mean, we don't want the economy to slip into recession. I understand that.
Don't you think the smart thing to do for Obama would be to embrace Simpson-Bowles?
Yes.
Come out
2
today
years
and
ago,
say,
yes.
But he's not going to,
Well,
Steve, and that's the problem. And the
well,
you're
we'll
right.
see.
Paul Ryan
those
didn't embrace Simpson-Bowles.
positions,
Your guy
those
didn't embrace
positions are the
Simpson-Bowles.
positions that I'm hearing are extreme positions, Yale. Those are the positions
they're
that
not.
Mitt Romney
come
ran
on,
on.
come on,
And the American
stop it.
people said, no, we want
no.
to
The
go
American-
with the other
but the
positions. I
American
agree with you
people-
completely. We have to have them.
Two-thirds of the American people want to see tax cuts for the middle class and not for the wealthy. And so the Republicans have to compromise on that issue. I think the people have clearly spoken on that.
And
they
what do we
need to
get for that,
compromise
Gwen?
on that.
Tell me,
I mean,
if we tax the wealthy, what do we get for it? We
Why
get to pay for
shouldn't we-
1 week of
are
the
you
government
making
expenditure.
It's
a
still
case
the
to let
principle,
the-
whatever the reason
I'm-
is. I mean,
what I'm making
so
a case
we've
for is
got to
this.
stop protecting the wealthy at the expense
No,
of
what I'm making a case
the
for
people of the
is
have-nots.
do what the
All right.
president said he would do. Cut, he said, and he said it over and over again. He said it 4 years ago. He said it the other night. We need to cut the deficit. I'm all for him doing that. In 4 years, he didn't
How
even
we
try.
cut the
We
deficit.
know how to
come on,
cut the
he's
deficit.
tried.
Cut the
Hold on.
deficit by
Listen,
raising taxes on
the
millionaires.
president just
More happened-
acknowledge the
It
fact
means
that the
Gwen,
president had to
hang
deal
on.
with the Congress
More
that
happened
said they
Tuesday
would
night.
make him
More
fail.
happened Tuesday night than just electing a president. Republicans maintain control of the U.S. House, although I think the Democrats picked up a couple of seats. Democrats still control the Senate by a larger margin than before, and the president is the same one who has been there for the past 4 years. What's the difference? What has
Nothing.
changed?
Well,
And that's the whole point.
the
It was a
difference.
status
Let
quo
me, if I could
election.
respond.
Well,
the difference is,
lot has
first of
changed.
all, 20 women in the Senate. I mean, you know, there are so many years when the women's issues have come up, and it's the year of the women and this and that. But guess what? This year really was. This year, we elected a woman in Nebraska and a Democratic woman to the Senate in North Dakota, the first lesbian woman in Wisconsin going to the Senate. Surprise, surprise. In addition to Elizabeth Warren and our own Claire McCaskill, who led the ticket in Missouri. So that's different. And it's not just that there was too little women's issues over here. Women were the predominant voters, and the gap between
Okay, but how's that going to solve what Mike was asking
because
about?
it's an economic issue. Women will not stand for
Is it
Obamacare being
fair to
rolled
say?
back.
Well, that's
Is it
not-
fair to
what
say
does that have to do
that
with
the
it?
deadline,
Money.
the fiscal cliff,
Yes.
is very near?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
the end of
And
the
that-
year.
yes.
The time
That's-
pressure
yeah,
may
that's
be
right.
what
Time
nothing
makes,
has changed
makes
on
a
that.
difference.
That's
All
the
right.
problem.
I think it is safe to say that Ruckus viewers and Ruckus panelists have been paying close attention to the race for the U.S. Senate, where incumbent Claire McCaskill was challenged by Congressman Todd Akin. No need to repeat the inane comments Akin made about rape and abortion that assured his defeat. But I want to ask Steve Rose first, what will the Akin effect be on Missouri politics and on politics nationwide?
Well, I think that the lesson learned is to keep your big mouth shut if you don't know what you're talking about. The long-term impact, I think this is an isolated case of one man who said something that was really, really stupid, and it cost him the election. And everybody asked him to step aside. He refused to step aside. Anybody else could have beaten Claire McCaskill,
Yeah.
and if he hadn't spoken, he would have beaten Claire McCaskill.
And he deserved to lose
And
because
he
he said what he
deserved
said
to
was
lose,
stupid.
and because after he
And
said what he
offensive.
said, he didn't apologize for
Right.
it immediately. It took him 5 days, and he kind
dug
of
in
half
deeper.
apologized. And Karl Rove himself and the President of the United States and everybody said this was irreparable damage, and he needed to just go. So I don't think that there's a overall overarching impact on the entire Republican Party over this.
Oh, I know.
But
Steve, I
you
disagree.
got
I mean, that
Murdoch in
was-
Indiana,
Exactly.
and,
Yeah,
and there were
other-
two
Yeah, there-
marginal candidates in 2010
Absolutely.
who had almost certain Republican seats that they
Right.
lost.
Yeah. Well,
when you
Four
nominate- yeah,
Republican
right.
seats.
Right.
Thank you for making. I mean, that's a good point. There were, there were 8 or 9 or whatever the number is of men. I think they're all white men who made similarly stupid comments about rape / abortion / women's issues, and they were all defeated. Now, one of them also included Paul Ryan, who also made his stupid comment on it. So I agree that Akin was defeatable and should have been defeated, but I think that the overarching lesson is be careful what you're speaking about when you don't know what you're talking about.
You know, I think it goes beyond just being careful what you say. I think the message that the Republican Party should get from this is that they have just consistently moved too far to the right, and the country is rejecting that. Those perspectives, those archaic approaches, that draconian Neanderthal
Gwen, if he
approach-
hadn't spoken,
No,
if he had just
but
kept
the
his mouth
Republican
shut,
pla- but the
he would have
important thing is
prevailed
that
over
the-
Claire
but-
McCaskill.
no,
Do you
but
agree with that or not?
No, he wouldn't.
Possibly. Claire is a shrewd and competent
Well, but she was
politician.
unpopular.
She
All
was
the polls showed
unpopular,
that.
but I think she
Yes.
still could have out
How much did Romney win by in Missouri?
Aiken.
Oh, substantial
13
amount,
points,
yeah.
10 points. If Claire was not going to win this election, Claire has many good qualities. In this election, anybody, including Aiken, had he kept his mouth shut, would have beaten
No,
her
you're wrong
by
on that.
at
Because
least
if you
5
look at
points.
Missouri,
Easily.
what you look at is that in Missouri, Missouri voted overwhelmingly for Mitt Romney, but in the state,
Yeah.
Democrats prevailed down that
Down
ticket
the line.
throughout. So to
Except
say
for
that
one.
Claire, with the exception of Susan
Governor.
Monteith, everybody on that Democratic ticket won. So you can't say
In
that.
addition to
You
that,
know,
Mike, Claire actually led the ticket.
Yeah.
She received more votes than
Well,
Governor
as she
Nixon.
pointed out, she
So that-
won not only in urban areas, but in rural
Yes, she
areas
did.
for the
Won in
first
rural
time
areas,
in her
too.
election campaigns. Let's take a look
Yeah.
briefly
Greene
at,
County.
at part of the speech she gave
Go
Tuesday
Greene
night
County.
after winning election.
18 months ago, there was a lot of the political chattering classes that were spouting a lot of information about the Senate race in Missouri. And they all said, it's over. It's done. It's too red. It's just too red. There is no way that Claire McCaskill can survive. Well, you know what happened? You proved them wrong.
All right, I have a question for Yale. Has Jacob Turk announced yet that he's running for a 5th time against Emanuel Cleaver for Congress in 2014?
Well, seriously, let's hope not. Emanuel did far better than most people, including myself, expected in winning that race. I mean, Turk is not even a nominal candidate. He's really no candidate at all. He has nothing that he would say, hey, I could be your congressman, and here's why. So hopefully he's gone. I mean, I think right now we can say it's probably Cleaver's seat until he wants it, or until somebody runs against him in a primary like a Mike Sanders and says, I'm going to take it from you. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's Cleaver's seat to lose.
All right, let me go over some of these propositions in Missouri that we talked about last week and just wrap up what happened to them. Proposition A, St. Louis Police Department now in the control of St. Louis officials, Mary, and that bodes well for Kansas City.
It does. Yes, positive.
Absolutely.
Positive for us, for the whole state.
Prop B was the cigarette tax, an increase of 73 cents a package.
Yeah.
And Yale, you wrote that you were delighted that it failed. Oh, wait a minute.
No.
Maybe you didn't say that.
I did not, and I'm very sad it failed narrowly. 42,000 votes out of 2.7 million, and as I consistently maintain, the single person who killed that tax was Jay Nixon with his gutless stand of not going out for that tax and going around telling people, hey, this is good for schools. I'll make sure the money's spent right. He could have turned that election. He didn't. Is a big failure by the government.
May I note that Jay Nixon was reelected governor of Missouri. Peter Kinder, lieutenant governor. Chris Costa remains as attorney general, and Jason Kander out of Kansas City becomes the new secretary of state, and I gather has a bright political future in the
he represents the kind of a center district state line to, I think, maybe Trooster Paseo right through South Kansas City. And he has established and really quite amazing record in his first years in the legislature on ethics reform, campaign finance reform, and government transparency. So his opponent received $400,000 that we know of from Rex Sinquefield, and Rex Sinquefield really wanted to beat Jason Kander, and he just worked harder than his opponent.
Prop E was related to Obamacare, and it says you can't set up state insurance exchanges without approval of the electorate. And Steve Marakian, I believe it is fair to say that despite that, if the state doesn't establish an insurance exchange as part of Obamacare, the federal government will step in and do it.
Yeah, it was a symbolic protest vote, but it won't stop the exchanges.
And let me stay with you. Amendment number 3 was defeated. That would have changed the way that Missouri selects its appellate and Supreme Court judges.
Yeah, and I think that we had talked about that before. I'm glad it was defeated, though quite frankly, it wouldn't have bothered me either way, because I think there are consequences to elections. It doesn't bother me a great deal that a governor should have some say in who gets nominated or appointed.
We have spent much time over the past couple of years talking about what would happen if Kansas conservatives took control of the state Senate. Going into Tuesday's election, conservatives already controlled the House and the governor's office. So what happened? Will conservative Republicans now run the Kansas State Senate, Mr. Rose?
Oh, they'll run it all right. I think that
into the ground.
Kansas is in for some. I don't think you can exaggerate the kind of changes that are coming to Kansas as a result of this entire takeover by the conservative wing of the Republican Party. And you'll see it in the courts, because one of the first things that this legislature is going to do is change the way that the appellate courts are determined. Right now, it's a panel of lawyers and non-lawyers who recommend. That will not be the case after the legislature gets done. It's going to be the governor who's going to decide with the confirmation of the Senate. And the appellate courts will go conservative. And they'll try to get a Supreme Court constitutional amendment to change so the Supreme Court will go as conservative as the rest of the parties. So it's a monumental change.
Yes, it is. And first thing that will happen, Mike, is there's going to have to be a budget process. And what we know from, yesterday or the day before, going to start off with a request to cut $700 million from the coming budget.
In other words, because of actions that have been taken,
already,
the revenues are estimated to be $715 million below what was needed or
And,
anticipated.
Mike, that's for
and wait,
starters.
let me just
That's for
finish here.
starters.
And therefore, because of this enforced reduction in income, cuts in programs and personnel are presumed likely in Kansas.
And this morning's paper had one of these newly elected geniuses, is what we used to call them, the freshman people coming in, saying that, oh no, we need to cut more. We need to cut more.
They want
taxes.
no income tax
That's right.
at all in
That's
the state
right.
of Kansas.
And this is not just
Zero.
That is
not just madness. Now I understand you disagree with it, and you disagree with it, and
Well, I
there may be
think it
good
is
reason.
madness,
But
yeah.
but
Yeah.
Steve Marakian, aren't there philosophical reasons to suggest a course of action not unlike what Governor Brownback is taking?
Absolutely. And as we've discussed before, Yale and I had this discussion, is that we'll see how it works. I think that they're on the right path. If, however, Steve Rose is right and they're on the wrong path, then adjustments will be made in the next election because the people of Kansas will say, this is ridiculous. I would like to see the fiscal restraint tried. I would like to see them cutting things out of the budget. I would like to see them trying to encourage business and so forth through reduction in taxes. Okay? Now, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But we have tried the other path in other states, and we're seeing what happens there. This path, if it works, great. If it doesn't, the people in Kansas will speak.
Right or wrong, the philosophical underpinning is low taxes attract people and business.
And reduce spending.
Well,
you have
we
low
have-
taxes and you have to reduce
We
spending.
have low
you have
taxes
to balance
for
your
some
budgets.
people,
And
not low
that's all.
taxes
That's all I'm saying.
for all.
But I think there are two things at work here, and we discussed them a little bit in the editorial page today. The people of Kansas did speak, as kind of as Steve said. They said, "Oh, let's elect these people," and these people, through Brownback especially, have said we're going to have lower taxes, and the revenues will go down, and then we'll make spending cuts. And that is exactly, as Steve said, maybe what they want. But I think the second thing is, if you really think low taxes are great, look around at some of the high tax states where they have better school systems. You know, Massachusetts is the one that everybody thinks about. Look at some of the schools with lower tax rates, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, all those, which have, go look at the rankings, horrible school districts. Kansas built its reputation. We're out here in the plains. We're in flyover country, okay? We built its reputation. Johnson County built its reputation on good schools, attracted high growth companies, all that kind of stuff. And I do think Brownback is imperiling that. And the Republicans, through massive cuts, are imperiling
Not
it.
only-
Glad you mentioned Johnson County. Mary, there were a couple of county commission races that we
Yes.
talked about last week. Clicka and Presta, the
Yes.
comedy team that we said, and then the other race with who was
Calvin Hayden.
Calvin
Hayden and
Hayden.
Toplica.
John Toplica.
So tell us what happened briefly.
Well, I can tell you what happened with Steve Clicka. He was by far the best candidate. He was so well organized and so well financed. Plus, everybody likes Steve Clicka. I'm so excited about. I actually am excited about this guy, a new face in Johnson County's county government. And he brings just expertise in education. Plus, he had this really fine grassroots campaign. And he ran it in a very kind of not top down, and he didn't hire a lot of advisors, but a tremendous inclusion of all kinds
He's
of
big on transportation
Right.
issues.
Big
That's
on
why you
transportation.
were writing about him and fond of him. Now the other race, Calvin Hayden and John Toplica.
I don't know
You
that
explain.
anybody. The only way to explain
his
this.
campaign,
The only
Steve?
way to explain this, I think, is that Olathe is the bastion of conservatism in maybe the entire country, and John Toplica is loved and adored by the ultra conservatives, the Right to Life movement, the people who are, physically extremely conservative. And Toplica is their man, even though he has proved himself to be inept as a county commissioner. That the people went with the man because his flag is in the ground for the things that they stand for, and he got elected 2-1 over his opponent, who was the incumbent. So,
Very quickly, last issue, Steve Marakian. Do you think it's fair to say that what is often described on this program and others as conservatism is not authentically what you and I think conservatism is?
Yeah, there's a difference. You and I have had this discussion many times. You and I think, view conservatism on the sort of the traditional political sense. Some people look at conservatism solely in terms of these social issues.
Yeah.
Are you far to the right in terms of abortion, gay marriage, and those kinds of things? I don't view that. That's not my view of conservatism.
Or mine. And that wraps up another hard-fought and contentious election cycle that taxed the patience and emotions of nearly every citizen. And I'm sure you can relate to this young lady's sentiment.
Oh, no.
I'm tired of Barack Obama and Mitt Romney.
That's why you're crying? Oh, it'll be over soon, Abby. Okay? The election will be over soon, okay?
Okay.
All right, Abby, the election is finally over, and the campaigns of 2016 are now underway.
Underway already.
And that is Ruckus for this week. Be sure to join Nick Haynes for Kansas City Week in Review Friday evening at 7:30. Now, on behalf of all the Ruckettes and our Ruckus crew, this is Mike Shannon saying thanks for watching and good night.
Production underwriting for Ruckus has been made possible in part by the generous contributions from Fred and Lou Hartwig and from viewers like you. Thank you.